In this program, you'll use a button to turn on the backlight of your Maker Screen LCD and show a message only when a button is pressed. The first thing you do is include the Maker Screen XVI.h code library. A code library allows your program to use special functions that make it easier to use things like the Maker Screen. For example, when you include this library, you now have access to the backlight on, set cursor, and backlight off functions that make it easy to use your screen. The next step is to name your LCD. Here I just use the letters LCD, which usually stand for Liquid Crystal Display, as the name for my Maker Screen. Inside the void setup function, you'll use the begin function to complete the setup of your Maker Screen. This allows your program to communicate with all of the functions inside the Maker Screen library. Next, you'll use the pin mode function with two arguments, 6 and input pull-up, to set up port 6 on your Maker Screen to have a button plugged in. When you use the input pull-up pin mode, the code is going to listen on that port for a signal, and in this case, we're going to act on that signal. Inside the void loop function, we have an if-else statement. An if statement has two main parts. Between the parentheses of the if statement is a condition that the code checks every time this loop is run. Between the curly braces of the if statement are actions that are run when the condition is true. So in this case, the condition that your code is going to check is the digital read of port 6 low? And that means, is the button that's plugged into port 6 pressed? When we're checking to see if two values are equal in code, we use these two equal signs. So if the button is pressed, the code between the curly braces of this if statement will run. First, the backlight on function will run. It doesn't require any arguments between its parentheses, and this just turns on the backlight of your Maker Screen. Next, the set cursor function will run, and it requires two arguments: which column and which row you want the cursor to be set in. The first column of Maker Screen is column 0, and the top row of Maker Screen is row 0. So by using 0, 0 here, you're setting the cursor to the upper left-hand side of your Maker Screen. Next, you have the write function, and inside the parentheses of the write function, you use quotation marks and then write the message that you want to display on the screen. Remember that Maker Screen has 16 characters from left to right, including spaces, so you may have to tailor your message to fit on that space. Because there are no delays between these functions, they're going to happen almost at the exact same time, and it's going to look instant. Next, there's an else statement in the loop. And when this loop runs, it's either going to run the code between the curly braces of the if statement, or it's going to run the code between the curly braces of the else statement. The void loop is never going to run the code inside the if statement and the else statement in the same loop. Inside this else statement, we have a backlight off function that turns off the backlight of Maker Screen, and a clear function that clears off any messages that are shown on the Maker Screen. When the code reaches this point, it will see the closing curly brace of the void loop and jump back up and check the condition inside the if statement again. So let's run through the two possibilities that could happen anytime the loop of this code runs. First, it could check the condition of the if statement and find that it's true. The button is pressed, so digital read 6 is low. If that's the case, then the three lines 14, 15, and 16 will run, turning on the backlight, setting the cursor to the upper left corner, and printing a message. The other possibility is that the condition of the if statement is not true. If that happens, the code is going to skip over the actions of the if statement. It's going to come down to the else statement and run whatever code is inside the curly braces of the else statement, turning off the backlight and clearing the LCD. Because there are no delays in the void loop of this program, it's going to check this if-else statement hundreds or thousands of times per second.